But now this week's extra 1 on 1 in 10 with environmental activist Mike Smith on his groundbreaking legal action against the biggest polluters in New Zealand and what that has exposed. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful. Mike, I have watched your activism over the decades and I believe you are one of our most important voices for human rights in New Zealand. Your incredible courage to take on the climate change issue by suing the 7 biggest polluters in New Zealand was unique, brilliant, and even supported by the Supreme Court of New Zealand. But then, out of the blue, this government decided to simply legislate directly over the top of you and pass law shutting down your case against the big polluters while killing off any future attempt to hold big polluters to account for the climate change pollution they create. The twist in this is that you discovered the big polluters were secretly advising the government to kill off your case, with revelations today that the information was sent via a private email account. So it could all occur in secret. First question, are you angry, furious, or incandescent with rage?
Well, I'm sad to say that I'm unsurprised. I mean, hiding official communications when they're sensitive by sending them to private emails is a pretty long established process, and that's in order to avoid public scrutiny. It's just in this case we've uncovered that, but it's just the tip of it. Well, it's a scandal, it's just the tip of the iceberg, and our ongoing inquiries aims to peel back the curtains on a number of other scandalous attempts by corporates to dictate to the government our economic, social policy and law. So, what has emerged, it raises serious questions about transparency, political accountability, and the influence of corporate, the defendants on lawmaking.
There has long been the suspicion that this government legislates for its corporate donors' interests.
It's been a secret process.
Yeah.
And it's involved missing records.
Yes. What you've discovered them actually doing this.
Yes, and so what I'm saying is that it's been a secret process, and the missing records are all hinting at a cover-up, that this is a systemic cover-up of doing. And I heard one reporter use the C word today in an stand-up with Luxon, when they allege that this is corruption, and I don't think that that's necessarily too strong a term. And so, these briefing papers that we're talking about were prepared in secret, they were delivered in secret, and then they disappeared from the public record. And that secret process directly led to legislation being introduced, and it's almost word for word. The text of the language used for the legislation as what was in the secret documents.
The claim by the government is that they had to step in to protect the sovereignty of Parliament, and that by allowing your case to continue, you could usurp their authority. What do you think of that defence?
Well, no, I don't accept that. I think, if anything, there's been an assault on the rule of law and the constitutional protections that we should enjoy as a democracy. But the trouble is with our system, there's no guardrails to protect us from the what was once described as the unbridled power of government to decide the rules as they go along. And if there's anything inconvenient that they don't like, they can just step in and legislate over the top of it. And I think the weakness that we have in our system is the fact that there are no guardrails to protect us from this type of thing developing.
The government has cut the Ministry for the Environment as climate change storms get worse and more intense. Greenpeace claim this is the worst environmental government in New Zealand history. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's been a war on nature. There's been a war on Māori. There's been a war on the poor. There's been a war on, people that are homeless. It's one of the most nasty and cruel governments that I've ever experienced in my just nearly 70 years.
Same.
And that's just that fundamental, nasty, cruel attitude that they have to the people that are less they just don't have the same benefits as others, is a stain on our country, in my opinion.
Amen. The science is telling us we face catastrophic climate events on a far more regular basis. Is there a tipping point where public apathy can no longer hold as the planet burns? And will that manifest, do you think, in a more militant environmental movement in this country?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, what I've observed in public sentiment is that people don't really start reacting at scale and en masse until the waves are coming through the lounge room windows.
Right.
And by that stage, it's far too late. So that's why we've got to preempt some of the inertia that exists in the political arena by forcing remedies on the government by law, which can be enforced. Hence our decision to take the government to court over their intransience when it comes to putting together, good policies and good legislation.
Finally, Mike, where does your fight against big polluters go to now?
Well, we continue on. I mean, I was part of the deep sea oil drilling campaign.
Yes.
We campaigned over 10 years around the country, mobilized communities up and down. We took to the water. We went up against the military,
Yes.
Air Force Orions overhead. We had frigates and things sailing around trying to stop us. But with that public mobilization, we were able to extract a moratorium out of the previous Labor government to prevent any more fossil fuel drilling. It's only just come back on the menu since these idiots have come into power.
Yeah.
But what it does tell us is that people power does work. If we can come together, if we can put aside our differences in the interest of the greater good, we can affect major change in this country, and we'll continue to do that.
I think you're such a legend, comrade. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and oversight this evening. All power to your arm, comrade.
Kia ora. Thanks, man.
Cheers, comrade.